The federal government is getting tough on cybercrime, with new figures revealing more than 250,000 pieces of data have been stolen from Australian businesses in the last 6 months alone. New laws announced by Attorney General Robert McClellan today will force telecommunications carriers to archive communications such as SMS and emails at the request of authorities. They also step up cooperation with international law enforcement agencies. Now, the changes pave the way for Australia to become a signatory to the Europe Convention on Cybercrime, which is the only internationally bound treaty on cybercrime in the world. The move comes as hackers continue to wreak havoc both here and overseas. Just yesterday, web hosting company Distribute IT said that nearly 5,000 Australian business websites were permanently lost as a result of an attack last week. Over the past month alone, Sony, Sega and the CIA have all been compromised by hacking groups. Let's get more analysis of the new laws and what they may mean for the business community. And for that, we're joined by Craig Scroggie. He's Managing Director of Symantec. Craig, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Take us through the changes today. I mean, are there any highlights from where you sit?
Look, this is an important move forward for the Australian government. Obviously, in the past, if the law enforcement agencies or the intelligent groups needed to collect information and ensure that information was available for ongoing cases or prosecution. In the past, they used to have a warrant issued. They were able to go and collect that information. They can now, with these changes, issue a non-destruct order, and that allows them to immediately go in and request the interception of either phone or internet, like email records, and ensure that those records aren't destroyed whilst they seek a warrant to be able to investigate and use that information for their benefit.
Does this bring any sort of burdens to the business community? I mean, is there any sort of direct impact in the way of costs, for example?
Look, I don't see any immediate or specific costs related to the businesses themselves. Obviously, the important move forward here is cybercrime continues to be a growing concern, and every day we see more evidence that only helps us support these moves from government to ensure that when we need to crack down on cyber criminals, that the government has the power, that the law enforcement agencies have the power to adequately exercise the things that they need to do to ensure they can collect that information and take action against these cyber criminals when they need to.
In a perfect world, though, I guess, always, I mean, do you think that these types of changes will be effective at stopping this wave of cybercrime that's, just seems to be gaining momentum?
Cybercrime is obviously an ongoing and growing concern. As more people join the internet, we get a larger percentage of internet commerce, buying, shopping, trading online. We get a larger number of people just in the workforce and the community adopting tablet computing, more iPhones and tablet devices out there. That means that obviously the landscape continues to get more complex. Cybercrime is generally motivated by financial gain. Cybercrime is a challenge for law enforcement agencies generally because a lot of it is cross-border fraud, and that is someone in another country is perpetrating that crime locally here in Australia. It can be difficult to pursue those individuals. By the time we collect enough information or get a warrant to make that pursuit, the organisations have moved on or they've destroyed important information relating to those cases. So I think these changes are meaningful. They're an important step forward, and obviously the Australian government can now comply with the Europe Convention on Cybercrime, and on a global scale that is an important and meaningful step forward for the government.
As I mentioned in the intro, just yesterday we saw Distribute IT saying that nearly 5,000 websites have been permanently lost, which you have to assume would be a fairly big impact for a business. So can businesses do anything to protect themselves, when there's a third party that's involved?
Yeah, look, that case obviously was a devastating case for that business, and obviously the 4,000 to 5,000 companies that were impacted directly as a result of that. We've seen many of these recently high-profile attacks on government and corporations. We expect obviously that these will continue, given that financial gain, hacking of identities and credit cards is something that is very lucrative for the cybercrime community. Can companies protect themselves? Absolutely they can. There are things that organisations can do to protect themselves from those hacks, ensuring that they have the adequate security policies and protocols in place, not only to protect their own corporate data, but very importantly protect the users within those organisations, because in many cases, whilst companies, banks, governments are very, very well prepared and have taken many steps to protect their infrastructure, a lot of the time the weakest link in security is obviously the individuals, and many of these hacks have been as a result of an individual within an organisation's information being compromised.
Just quickly before you go, cybercrime now apparently worth more than the illicit drug trade, which is hard to imagine, but is there sort of a magic bullet that could actually bring this under control?
Unfortunately, there is not a simple solution to the growth in the underground economy. We know that it's getting larger. Obviously, the more cross-border fraud that we see, it's easier for these criminals to perpetrate quite targeted attacks on individuals, and people can be confident they can protect themselves, but we've got to take basic security measures. Ensure that you protect your username and password, back up your information. In the event that your account is hacked or your information is deleted, you should be able to recover and restore your information and continue supporting your customers. And they're things that obviously just from a security point of view, but are very, very important for a business continuity perspective.
Change your password often. It's something that so many of us are so poor at doing. Craig, thank you so much for coming in and explaining this all for us. We do appreciate your time.
Great to talk to you.
Craig Scroggie, he's the Managing Director of Symantec.